Hello everyone, back to today's second video. So we've already done the first seasonal roundup for the autumn of 2017. You can find the video here on the homepage. Just scroll down a little bit and it's above the polling count. We're getting 8 long-range models together and seeing what they're showing for the autumn 2017. It's the first time this season that we've done that. Later on today, that's going to be placed on the autumn updates and forecast page. There'll be a written summary that goes with that as well, so you can't watch the video. You'll be able to read written report about that later on, probably around 6 or 7 o'clock this evening. This GWV Sunday Round is going to be a little bit shorter than normal. We haven't got the solar tracker for this one, but we're going to have a look at various things. We'll start off with the oceans. We'll also have a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations as well, and we will look at weather next week's 10 days also. So let's get on with it then, and we're going to start off, I say, with the oceans, the Atlantic and Pacific. Now, I did the ENSO update last night, so if you haven't seen that, I'll just recap what we discussed. There's been very little development in terms of El Nino over the past month. A couple of months ago, it looked like we might be heading in towards an El Nino event. Through April and May, that El Nino event has stalled. It remains stalled. However, there has been an interesting development with the Southern Oscillation Index, and I'll talk about it in a moment. At the moment, however, in terms of the ocean, temperatures in the Equatorial Pacific from Peru over here to Indonesia over here, we still remain around ENSO neutral on the warmer side. There's still no real signal for El Nino. Further north in the Pacific Ocean, it's actually still quite cold, but it's warming up a little bit in the far northern part of the Pacific Ocean, but essentially still quite chilly up in the northern part of the Pacific. Got a very striking sea surface temperature anomaly profile in the Atlantic, so it's still looking really quite warm through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean just there. But further north, we've got really quite a deep cold pool sitting in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. The cold blob has returned, so a real north-south split in terms of those sea surface temperature anomalies. At the moment, the main thing we're going to concentrate on, I would have thought, is these warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies through the tropical Atlantic Ocean, because that's where we get hurricane development or tropical storm development, if you like, over those warm waters. And if it's warmer than average in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies there, that may well provide the energy for some quite big storms through the course of this summer and into the autumn. One of the things that would negate that is El Nino, but at the moment there's no real sign of a proper El Nino event. So at this stage it looks like we could have quite an active hurricane season. However, if El Nino was to start developing through the course of summer and into the autumn, that would put a dampener on the tropical storm development. So it might be that it's an early season in terms of tropical storms and hurricanes in the Atlantic. We might get some quite big storms early on, and then if El Nino gets going through the latter part of the summer into the autumn, then perhaps we put a dampener on that. In terms of this cold blob in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, that probably is helping to provide a little bit of activity for the Atlantic, if you like. So it could well be that the Atlantic is a little bit more buoyant over the next few weeks and months. But of course, that doesn't rule out the chance of hot weather. We've got all of this warm water here through the Mediterranean, also into the Bay of Biscay as well. That's associated with the hot start to the summer that we've had across Europe. And that should help to promote ridging through the Mediterranean and going northwards into central parts of Europe. So quite an interesting and unusual Atlantic sea surface temperature anomaly pattern at the moment. Don't forget, next Sunday there won't be a GWV Sunday Roundup, because next Sunday we've got the NAO forecast winter of 2017-18. Always a very interesting update, that one. So that will be coming up next Sunday, 2nd of July. So have a quick look at the SOI. As I said, we have had some developments with the SOI over the past month. It's gone negative through June. So every day so far during June, starting on the 1st just here, of course, has posted a negative return in terms of the Southern Oscillation Index. So there we are on the first, for example, at minus 3.80, the second on minus 9.91, on the third it going down to minus 19.33. And as I say, every day has posted a negative return with the SOI so far this June. We come down to the very latest, and it's the 21st. Actually hasn't updated for a few days, not sure why that is. But up to the 21st of June, anyway, it's at minus 1.62. These are preliminary. They do get changed a little bit by the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, but they don't normally get changed that much. It does look as though June has definitively shifted into a negative phase of the SOI. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the southern Pacific Ocean. But when the SOI is negative, it tells you that the atmospheric setup is conducive to an El Nino type situation. So it looks like the atmosphere is moving more towards El Nino in the South Pacific, and if the SOI continues negative for the next few weeks and into July and August, that will probably start to allow the warm water that's already at depth within the Pacific Ocean to start to upwell, and we may well find that we go into El Nino later on in the summer. We'll have to wait and see what the SOI does over the next month. That will be quite important. Just having a look at the Siberian and Scandinavian and Russian snow cover. So it's more or less gone now, the snow cover. It's been a delayed melt season in terms of the snow cover across Scandinavia and northern parts of Russia. Been a fairly cold spring and early summer, but most of that snow cover has now gone. So we've got a little bit left, of course, we're very, very far northern part of Siberia, but that will be gone, I would have thought, within the next week or so, and then we'll be snow free until September, when the snow cover will begin to return again, of course. And we always monitor that while we when we do the winter updates through the course of the autumn. We always keep an eye on how quickly the snow cover advances across Siberia and Russia. But the latest, and it's almost gone now. In terms of Arctic sea ice, that's all this yellow up here, the melt season is well underway, of course, as you would expect it to be by now. That will bottom out sometime in September. It's not too bad, actually, in terms of melt season. It looked like it's going to be a pretty bad melt season earlier on in the season, around March. It was very rapidly thawing out the Arctic. It has kind of levelled off over the past few weeks. So I think it's going to be quite a big melt season. We always get fairly big melt seasons now, it seems, but hopefully it won't be a death spiral such as we had in 2012. Having a look at the Arctic Oscillation next. This is the AO Observed and Forecast chart. And remember, this again is the same with the SOI. The Arctic Oscillation is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. It's not driving anything, it just tells you what the atmospheric setup is doing. We can go right way back to the start of the spring with this. March 1st is just there. The black line shows us where we've been with the AO. The red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting us to go. So, through the early part of the spring, through much of March, the Arctic Oscillation was in its positive phase. A change took place in April when we started to trend negative, particularly the second half of April, and that negative AO continued into May, and then it tried to pick up a bit, but still generally on the negative side into June as well. Since the middle part of June, this period just here, another change has taken place with the AO going positive, lifting up. And of course, that's being associated with that heat wave that we had last week. So as the AO went positive, so we built up the Azores high, built up the ridge from the Azores, and then set up the hot spell. Well, the forecast part of GFS ensembles is to reduce the Arctic Oscillation for a while down towards neutral territory. This is the neutral part of the Arctic Oscillation just here on this chart. And that's going to be associated with a much cooler, much more unsettled phase of weather coming up in the next week. However, as we go towards the start of July, that's this period just here, early July, the AO is trending back up into positive territory once again. So it could well be, as we go through into the early part of July, we start to get a build of pressure from the Azores once again. If we do, then that is going to be associated perhaps with a warmer, drier spell of weather coming up through the early part of July. North Atlantic Oscillation is very similar again. This is just telling us what the setup is in terms of the atmospheric setup in the North Atlantic this time, as opposed to the Arctic. It's not driving anything, it just tells you what's going on. Again, we can go back to the start of spring, March the 1st, here with the black line telling us where we've been with the NAO, and red lines at the end telling us where the NAO has been forecast to go. So through the early part of spring, again, same story with the Arctic Oscillation as with the Arctic Oscillation, really. Early part of spring, the North Atlantic Oscillation was positive. Through April into May, it went negative. We've gone into June, still keeping the NAO negative. But over the past couple of weeks, the NAO has trended back up to positive territory once again. And the red lines, are, which are the GFS ensembles, remember, forecasting the NAO probably to be close to neutral for the next week. Again, that's associated with the cooler, wetter phase that we've got coming up in the next week. And then I think the trend into start of July, this period just here, is to lift the NAO into positive territory. So it looks like early July we're going to have the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation probably going positive. And I think that tells us that we can expect a build of pressure from the Azores. Now, whether that build of pressure is enough to give us another heat wave, I don't know about that, but I would certainly be suggesting in the first couple of weeks of July we might get some drier and warmer weather coming along once again as the NAO and the AO begin to go positive once more. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Not a huge amount going on with the temperatures over the next week, you have to say. So we're around sort of average temperatures right now. We expect us to be close to that 30-year temperature average. Go a little bit above average in the early part of the coming week. That is associated with low pressure, so that's very unsettled type stuff. And then after that, very close to the red line once again into the early part of July, this period just here. Later on in the chart, so this is going into the second week of July just here, we might be starting to see a few hot outlier members turning up, and the trend may be into second week of July to start increasing the temperatures once again. But there is a lot of scatter in with that, so there are several ensemble members that are actually on the cooler side of things. So a lot of uncertainties going into second week of July, but possibly turning things warmer then. The main thing with this chart is probably the precipitation spike. So for the next couple of days, a reasonable amount of dry weather. This is the ensemble for London, a reasonable amount of dry weather for London. But it looks very unsettled, really, in the coming week. And particularly from midweek onwards, we have some really quite large precipitation spikes in there. As I say, that is associated with the temperatures lifting up a bit just here, but it does look very, very unsettled. I think we could well be looking at some really wet weather through the middle part of the week, and then showers or longer spells of rain into the second half of the week. After that, into the second half of the first week of July, if you like, but into the second week of July, still some rainfall spikes, but not as much, and the trend again might be a little bit towards the drier side of things, although, as I say, there is a lot of uncertainty here within this ensemble in terms of the second week of July. Temperature anomalies are looking like this, a bit cooler than average for the week ahead. This is taking us from the 25th of June through to the 3rd of July. Much of Western Europe is coming out cooler than average. The heat has gone down into the southeast of Europe. That's always one of nature's balancing acts. If the north or the west of Europe is cooler, then the south or the east will typically be warmer, and it tends to be the other way round as well. So if the south or the east of Europe is cool or cold, the north or west tends to be warmer. Precipitation anomalies are quite interesting because they're coming out significantly wetter than average for a week ahead. Again, this is from the 25th of June to the 3rd of July. Very wet precipitation anomalies for much of the UK and for much of Western Europe as well, particularly southern parts of France and northern Spain, quite unusually looking very wet. But also the UK is looking significantly wetter than average in the week ahead. This is how the GFS is seeing things for Wednesday, but it's not very good. We've got low pressure centering right over the top of the UK and down into northern parts of France as well. That low pressure is still sitting there. It's quite a deep trough actually for the time of year at 995 millibars over the top of the country on Thursday as well. That could be bringing a lot of rain with it. So this is the precipitation forecast for midnight on Wednesday, when it does look really quite wet across much of the country, and that rain is centering itself over England and Wales, particularly through the course of Wednesday, and it does look heavy, persistent, maybe even a bit on the torrential side through the course of Wednesday as the rain gradually creeps its way northwards into northern parts of England. That could certainly give us up to an inch of rain, I would have thought, through central parts of the country. And not only wet, it also looks quite cold as well on Wednesday, with temperatures under that persistent area of heavy rain, barely into mid-teens Celsius, just 15 or 16 degrees, where it does turn a bit warmer in the southeast as that rain clears through. Could be some very, very wet weather coming up this week. So Thursday has that low pressure centred over the top of the country, and it's still there really into Friday, producing, if not persistent spells of rain, certainly showers, and they could merge into longer spells of rain. So a bit of a write-off really through the middle and second half of this week. A little bit of an improvement over the weekend. Still looks unsettled, but eventually, as we push this trough through, which does bring more rain, we start to get a bit of a build of pressure from the Azores. That's what I talked about when I was looking at the AO and the NAO charts. This high pressure looks like it could bring some drier and warmer conditions. It's not a heat wave, but it could bring some drier and warmer conditions as we go through this first week of July. That does look quite pleasant, fairly ridgy, with the ridge building up from the Azores. So once we get this very unsettled weather out of the way over the rest of this week and into next weekend, if you like, then beyond that we might start to see a return of warmer and drier weather. Not necessarily though a heat wave. I don't think there's any sign of going back to the heat that we had a few days ago. ECWF finally again looks very unsettled through the middle part of the coming week. Low pressure is over and to the east of the country. That'll be bringing a lot of wet weather into the end of the week. That low pressure eventually clears away over the weekend. We tried to build a bit of pressure up from the south. This looks a bit better for next weekend actually, compared to the GFS, which is really quite unsettled for next weekend. This is a little bit drier. Not necessarily all that warmer, but it is a little bit drier for next weekend. Go through to Monday the 3rd of July, still looking quite unsettled really, but after that pressure starts to build quite nicely. So by day 10, Wednesday 5th of July, we are starting to build that ridge back up from the Azores high into the west of Europe. So we've certainly got some very unsettled weather to come in the next week, and particularly from around Tuesday, Wednesday up to next weekend. It does look really unsettled, and there could be some very wet weather in with that. So if you're waiting for some rain for your gardens, good news there. Beyond that, as we go through the first week of July, maybe seeing signs of building pressure from the Azores. Don't want to go too over the top with this at the moment, so I don't think we're looking at heat wave conditions returning, but maybe becoming drier and warmer in that 7 to 10 day time frame, which is around the 3rd, 4th, 5th of July. We'll keep you posted, of course. So that's it for the Sunday Roundup for today. Don't forget to check out the first seasonal model roundup for the autumn of 2017. That is here on the homepage. It'll be placed on the autumn updates page later on. No Sunday Roundup next week because it's the NAO forecast for winter of 2017-18 next Sunday. So come back for that. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.